I drove 12 hours through a snowstorm with a homemade pie and a heart full of hope. But when my mom opened the door, she looked me dead in the eye and said, "Sorry, I think you have the wrong house." And then she closed it. My name is Allison, and that was the moment I realized I wasn't part of their family anymore. If you've ever given everything to people who made you feel like nothing, this story might feel familiar. Why do some families only love what you give, not who you are? Have you ever been shut out by the people who were supposed to be home? Let me know in the comments. I'd really love to hear your story too. I hadn't been back in nearly 3 years, but the route never changed. The exit sign for Akron still came up too fast, and the old gas station with the faded mural still stood like a postcard from a different decade. My car's heater rattled like it was struggling to keep up with the snowstorm outside, and the smell of cinnamon from the pie on the seat beside me was both comforting and bittersweet. I had made Grandma Reed's apple pie 5 times that month to get it just right flaky crust, not too sweet with a pinch of nutmeg she always swore by. It felt like the only part of her I could carry home. Beside it, a tote full of carefully wrapped gifts shifted every time I turned the wheel. Each one was labeled by hand, a cashmere sweater in Mom's favorite shade of blue concert tickets for Tyler, even a spa voucher for that place Mom once mentioned in passing 2 summers ago. I'd listened. I always listened. Chicago had felt especially hollow that morning. I'd left my apartment spotless, locked the door behind me like I might not come back, not physically, but emotionally. My boss Lisa had raised an eyebrow when I turned down the company retreat to Jamaica. "Sure you want to spend Christmas in Ohio?" she asked, trying to hide her concern with sarcasm. "You could be sipping coconut water by the beach." "I need to be there this year," I'd replied. "It's time. Time to rebuild what had quietly crumbled. Time to stop letting missed birthdays and unanswered texts pile up like unopened mail. I wanted warmth laughter, maybe even one of Mom's tight-lipped smiles that said, "I'm proud of you, but I won't say it out loud." I called her around noon while creeping through Indiana windshield wipers, barely keeping up with the snow. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice oddly clipped. "We're having dinner at 6, she said. "I should be there by 5, I told her. "I've got presents, and pie." A long pause. "You didn't need to do all that. I wanted to." "And Tyler? He still likes Honeycrisp apples, right?" Another pause. "He's around." That was it. No excitement, no drive safe, or "can't wait to see you." Just the low hum of awkwardness we hadn't acknowledged in years. I brushed it off as stress. Holidays did that to people. Later I called Tyler. He picked up with background noise blaring some kind of arcade or maybe a bar. "Hey, sis, what's up?" "Just checking in. About 2 hours out. Roads are a mess. Cool. Listen, I'm in the middle of something. Can I call you back?" He didn't. I stopped at a gourmet market just outside Columbus. The shelves were mostly picked clean, but I managed to find a few late-season apples, fresh cream, and a pie dish with painted holly leaves around the rim. A woman behind me in line noticed the ingredients and smiled. "Someone's getting a homemade treat tonight. My family," I replied, surprising myself with how fragile my voice sounded. Outside, I sat in the car a few extra minutes before pulling back onto the highway. I played a Christmas playlist from my phone, mostly the old ones, Ella Fitzgerald, Bing Crosby, Judy Garland. The voices of people long gone felt oddly closer than the voices I'd spoken to that day. By the time I turned onto Maple Avenue, it was just after 5:30. The snow had slowed to a gentle flurry, the kind that makes everything look like a snow globe. The street was quiet, lined with familiar homes that had been decorated better than I remembered. Our old 2-story colonial came into view now with elegant white lights wrapped perfectly around the porch columns and a massive wreath centered on the door. It looked like something out of a real estate catalog. I parked along the curb, took a deep breath, and checked my reflection in the rearview mirror. Lipstick still intact, hair frizzier than I'd hoped, but nothing a quick comb-through couldn't fix. I wanted to look together, not desperate, not like someone hoping to be forgiven. The driveway was full, a sleek black SUV, a red crossover, and a luxury car I didn't recognize. I climbed the front steps carefully, balancing the pie in one hand and the tote of gifts in the other. From inside, I heard music, Michael Bublé's voice crooning, "I'll be home for Christmas." Someone laughed. Glasses clinked. I rang the doorbell. Footsteps approached. Then the door opened. Mom stood there in a black dress I'd never seen before, makeup done like she was hosting a benefit gala, not Christmas Eve dinner. For a moment, her expression lit up, then froze. Her eyes darted past me toward the driveway and then back to my face. "Sorry," she said, her voice a little too loud. "I think you have the wrong house." At first, I thought I'd heard her wrong. Maybe it was the wind, maybe the music inside muffled her words, but her expression didn't lie. Her mouth was smiling like a polite stranger, but her eyes had gone cold like they'd snapped shut. And behind her shoulder, I could see people I didn't recognize holding champagne flutes and laughing under a chandelier we never used growing up. "Mom." "It's me," I said carefully, my voice catching halfway through. She didn't move from the doorway. "There's no Allison here," she said again, firmer this time. Her body blocked most of the entrance like she was bracing herself against something much heavier than snow. The pie was still warm in my hands, and I held it up slightly like some kind of offering. "I drove 12 hours. We talked on the phone. You told me dinner was at 6. She leaned forward and lowered her voice. "This isn't a good time, Allison. You should have called to confirm." I blinked. I did call. Then a voice from inside Margaret Who's at the door. I didn't recognize it. Older male, confident, a guest. Mom's head turned sharply. "It's nothing," she called out. Then she turned back to me. "Please don't make a scene." The words stung more than I expected. "I brought gifts. For you. For Tyler." "For I told you," she hissed, "not now." The warmth I'd imagined all day, the fire crackling, the scent of turkey, the chance to feel home again evaporated like breath in the cold. Snow clung to my boots and hair as I stood there, still holding everything I'd hoped would mean something. And then I heard it. Allie Tyler. He stepped into view behind her wearing a crisp button-down and slacks, looking like someone else entirely. He froze. For a moment, his face softened like recognition, like maybe he'd say something human. But then his hand landed on Mom's shoulder. "Everything okay out here? She's just lost," Mom said too quickly. I stared at him. "Tyler." He looked away. "You should have called first," he muttered. Inside, someone called out Tyler. "Your girlfriend's telling that story about Aspen again. Don't miss it." "Girlfriend Aspen? Since when did Tyler ski?" He gave me a quick shrug, like a child caught sneaking candy, then stepped back into the warmth. Mom followed. But before closing the door, she added, "You need to leave Allison. This is embarrassing." Embarrassing. That word did it. Something inside me cracked. I wanted to say something, anything, but my throat closed up. Instead, I bent slowly, placed the pie carefully on the welcome mat, and rested the gift bag beside it. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't need to. I walked down the steps without looking back. By the time I reached my car, my hands were trembling. I climbed into the front seat, shut the door, and let the silence rush in. Then the tears came, not the pretty kind, but the kind that makes your chest ache and your whole body shake. I hadn't even turned off the engine yet. That's when my phone rang. "Tyler." My hand hovered before answering. I didn't know what I was hoping for, but I picked up anyway. "Allie," he said quickly. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you were actually coming. Mom said you canceled." I stared out the windshield at the house glowing behind frosted glass. "What?" "She told everyone you couldn't make it, that you were staying in Chicago." I didn't respond. I couldn't. "She didn't tell you about tonight. The dinner's for some business thing. Richard and his people." He sounded nervous, not apologetic. Nervous. Then silence. But the call didn't end. I looked at the screen. Still connected. He hadn't hung up. And that's when I heard it, the sound of footsteps, laughter, and Tyler's voice again farther away now. "She totally bought it," he was saying. "Tried to show up with pie like it's a Hallmark movie." I didn't speak. I just held the phone to my ear. Breath shallow, body frozen, both from the Ohio cold and something deeper, colder inside me. Tyler hadn't hung up. Through the crackling line, I heard his voice muffled but clear enough. "She totally bought it," he was saying with a chuckle that sliced sharper than any scream. "Showed up with a homemade pie like it's some kind of Hallmark movie." A woman's voice responded too distant to make out the words. Then Tyler again, I told you. She still thinks sending money means she's automatically invited to stuff. Like we owe her something for paying bills. Someone laughed. Another voice joined in my mother's. At least her money doesn't come with long phone calls, Mom said. Always wanting to talk. Always needing some emotional check-in. Laughter followed. The casual kind. Not cruel exactly, but the kind people say for someone they're certain isn't listening. But I was. I sat in the driver's seat, fingers clenched around the steering wheel, heart pounding so loud I barely noticed my tears. They weren't sobs this time. Just steady streams as if my face was done holding anything in. Mom continued, her voice now, closer to the phone. Remember when she missed Christmas last year? Sent that ridiculous overnight package like she thought gifts made up for absence, and then acted hurt when I didn't call to say thanks. She's always been like that, Tyler added. Over-attached. Acts like being generous gives her rights. Rights. I swallowed hard as if that word alone could choke me. Rights to be invited. Rights to exist in their lives. Rights I'd never questioned until now. They moved away from the phone, but their voices lingered. I heard Mortgage Country Club Richard's spa fund. None of it made sense yet. It explained everything. I reached for my bag with shaking hands and pulled out my phone charger, then opened my banking app. For a few minutes, all I did was scroll. Line after line of automatic transfers, $800 to Mom, $500 to Tyler, extra deposits every Christmas, rent payments, card authorizations, grocery money, emergency cash, birthday bonuses. A lump settled in my throat, not from sadness, but from humiliation. I hadn't been helping. I'd been funding a lifestyle I wasn't even allowed to witness. In the Notes app, I began listing dates, transaction IDs, amounts, brief reasons I'd written in the memos. Furnace repair, Tyler's car issue, medical bill, holiday groceries. It wasn't a list of kindness anymore. It was evidence. By the time I finished documenting, my fingertips were numb and my breath came in shallow bursts. I opened a new email, addressed it to both of them. The subject line was simple, termination of support. And then I wrote, effective immediately, I have canceled all financial transfers and revoked all card access. Do not contact me for financial matters going forward. Allison, no anger, no explanation, just fact. I hovered for one long second, then tapped send. For a while, I didn't move. The snow hit the windshield in soft, slanted streaks. Inside the house, the party continued. Music swelled again. Someone opened the front door to let in another guest. No one noticed the woman in the parked car out front, severing years of sacrifice with a single decision. I turned the key in the ignition. Christmas Eve had never felt colder. The motel room smelled like lemon cleaner and something older, maybe damp carpet or decades of forgotten holiday travelers. I woke before the sun rose with the kind of clarity that doesn't come from rest, but resolve. The glow from the neon vacancy sign outside bled through the curtains in soft pulses. I didn't cry, I didn't pace. I opened my laptop. The login screen came to life, and with it, the ghost of Lisa's voice from a management seminar 3 years ago. Control your calendar, or someone else will. I hadn't listened then. Not really. I let Mom and Tyler set the tone. Their emergencies became my calendar. Their guilt became my budget. Not anymore. I started by reopening my banking dashboard. The snow outside thickened. Christmas morning. First, the automatic transfers. $800 to Margaret Reed. $500 to Tyler Reed. Every 15th of the month, like clockwork. Canceled. Then I moved to the credit card section. There was a platinum card in my name that Mom had access to originally for medical emergencies. She said, though, half the transactions were at department stores and wine clubs. Tyler had one, too, meant for gas money when he'd lost a job 2 years ago. The charges told a different story online. Gaming concert tickets, ride shares to places I'd never heard of. I clicked through security prompts and removed them both. When I reached for my phone to call the credit card company for a final confirmation, my fingers shook, but not from hesitation, from adrenaline. Hi, I'd like to remove 2 authorized users from my account. Yes, Margaret Reed and Tyler Reed, effective immediately. The rep didn't ask questions. She just confirmed the change, wished me a Merry Christmas, and disconnected. Next, the landlord. Mr. Kaplan had always been kind to me. When I offered Tyler the discounted sublet in my building, it felt like I was doing something generous. Now it just felt misused. I drafted the email quickly. Hi, Mr. Kaplan. Please consider this my formal notice to terminate the sublease agreement for Tyler Reed. Effective January 1st. I will arrange to return the keys and ensure the space is vacated on schedule. Thank you for your understanding. Allison Click. Sent. My inbox was already filling up. First came the bounce back from my cancellation of the transfers. Then Tyler's name lit up in a series of texts. What the hell, Allie? My card got declined at the gas station. You didn't even warn us. Then Mom. Allison, this isn't funny. Fix it immediately. You're being dramatic. Again. I ignored them all. I opened a fresh document, one sentence centered. I typed it carefully, like I was setting something in stone. I've terminated all financial support. You'll receive nothing further. Please don't contact me again. No warmth, no explanation, just boundaries. I copied it into an email, addressed it to both of them. Subject: Final Notice. And then I hit send. The laptop made its little swoosh sound. My hands fell to my lap. I leaned back in the chair, exhaling. It was louder than any fight I'd ever had with them. Louder than every passive-aggressive sigh over Thanksgiving. Louder than all the years of being the helper, the strong one, the fallback plan. I didn't scream. I didn't throw anything. I just took my life back. One canceled transaction at a time. My phone buzzed again. A voicemail. From Tyler. I tapped play. His voice was tight, forced calm. This is financial abuse, Allie. You're emotionally unstable. You can't just cut people off without warning. We'll get lawyers involved if you don't fix this immediately. I let the message play out to the end. Then I deleted it. No response. No reaction. Instead, I closed the lid of my laptop, sat quietly in the room's silence. The window framed a snow-covered parking lot. My car sat half-buried in white. The dashboard bag with unopened gifts was still in the back seat. I imagined them now, soggy with wrapping paper curling at the edges. The cashmere sweater for Mom, the concert tickets for Tyler, the pie dish I'd picked so carefully. It didn't matter. None of it had ever really mattered to them. I walked to the small dresser by the window. My phone buzzed again, another text. I turned it over face down and whispered into the silence, "Family doesn't threaten. Parasites do." And for the first time that morning, I smiled. The calls stopped. For days, my phone had lit up with a fury of messages, demands, accusations, guilt-laced pleas, and finally threats wrapped in concern. Then, one morning in early January, I woke up, and the silence had settled. No new texts, no missed calls, just stillness. At first, the quiet throbbed. It echoed like an empty hallway in a house I used to know. But slowly, it began to feel less like abandonment and more like a room I hadn't realized I was allowed to renovate. I made tea in silence. I folded laundry in silence. I walked to work with the kind of calm that comes only when the noise is no longer yours to manage. Lisa was the first to notice. We were in the middle of a presentation review when she paused mid-sentence and looked at me. "You're different," she said, not unkindly. Sharper. Still, like someone who's finally stopped treading water. I didn't explain. I just smiled. Later that week, she left a sticky note on my desk, Dr. Kaur. Therapist specializes in family systems. Thought you might want her name. No pressure. A smiley face was drawn next to it in Lisa's blocky handwriting. I called the number. Dr. Kaur's office smelled like lavender and old books. She wore no makeup, spoke with deliberate care, and never once used the phrase, "Let it go." I liked her immediately. "What brings you here?" she asked in our first session. "My family no longer speaks to me," I replied. "And somehow I feel lighter." We unpacked it from there. Each week, we examined not just the wound, but the pattern. The long history of emotional responsibility I had never asked for, but always accepted. "They loved the way I gave," I said once. "Not the way I felt." Dr. Kaur nodded. "There's a difference between being generous and being used." By mid-February, I'd stopped checking for messages. One night, I opened the voicemail folder on my phone and deleted every saved call from Mom and Tyler. One tap at a time. It felt like pruning dead branches necessary. A little sad, but freeing. I found the pie dish in the back of my kitchen cabinet, the one I'd carried across state lines, thinking it might become a family heirloom. I washed it one last time and dropped it into the donation box in my building's lobby. The next day, Clara knocked on my door. She lived 2 floors down, always friendly in passing, the kind of neighbor who remembered birthdays and watered plants while you were away. "I made lemon cake," she said, holding a blue ceramic plate. "You look like someone who could use a slice and a story." I invited her in. Her story unraveled gently over coffee and crumbs. A son who lived abroad, a daughter she no longer spoke to, a husband long gone. Her pain wasn't sharp anymore, but rounded out like something she'd learned to live beside. "We think family is forever," she said. "But sometimes forever means knowing when to walk away." I found myself telling her everything. Not the summary, the real parts. The gifts unopened, the pie on the porch, the way Tyler had laughed after forgetting to hang up. Clara didn't flinch. She just nodded, handed me another slice of cake, and said, "You didn't lose family. You lost an audience." By March, we were baking together every Sunday. Her arthritis flared up in cold weather, so I took over the kneading. In return, she told me how to tell when a lemon is ripe just by the weight in your palm. It was Clara who told me about the community center. "They need volunteers," she said one afternoon, handing me a flyer. "Someone to serve meals, maybe teach a little." I started small, helping with Sunday dinners. Then came budgeting workshops. I didn't realize how much I knew until I had to explain interest rates to a teenager saving for his first car. "You make it sound easy," he told me. "It wasn't," I said, "but it matters." Each session I remembered what it felt like to give without being drained, to help because I wanted to, not because someone demanded it, to serve out of choice, not obligation. One afternoon, I printed the termination email I'd sent to Mom and Tyler. I slid it into a sleek black frame and set it beside my desk. It didn't feel bitter, it felt earned. Lisa stopped by once and read it without a word. She just tapped the glass gently and said, "Nice." By spring, the snow began to melt in patches. The city smelled like damp concrete and possibility. My apartment, once so quiet, it rang now, held soft music, rising bread dough, and laughter that came from people who knocked first. One Saturday evening, I hosted my first dinner. No family. Just Clara, 2 coworkers from the agency, and a neighbor from across the hall who brought a caramel flan that cracked perfectly when sliced. We talked about books and taxes and lemon zest. We passed dishes in real time. No one asked for anything more than seconds. After dessert, Clara stayed behind to help me clear plates. She watched me rinse out the wine glasses and asked, "So, what will you do this Christmas?" I looked up, not startled by the question, just surprised by the ease of the answer. "Something that finally feels like mine," I said. And I meant it. It was one of those spring mornings that didn't try too hard, sunny, but not loud about it. The tulips outside the library had started to open. Chicago looked scrubbed clean, the way it does when winter finally releases its grip. I'd just picked up a new cookbook from the shop on Clark. Clara had circled the lemon tart page before I even checked out when I saw him. Tyler, standing outside a boutique window, squinting at a display of vintage vinyl. Same messy hair, but less charming now. He looked older, or maybe just worn. He turned, caught my eye. "Allie," he said, surprised, sliding into something that tried to pass as warmth. Wow, what are the odds? I didn't flinch. I didn't step back. I simply nodded. "Tyler," there was a pause, a shuffle of shoes on pavement. "You look good," he said. "Really good." "Thanks," I replied, voice even. "I am good." Another pause. This time longer. His hands were stuffed in the pockets of a frayed jacket I didn't recognize. He looked like he was searching for the right line in a script he hadn't rehearsed. "We've had a rough year," he said finally. "Mom sold the house. The spa didn't work out. Market's a mess. Everything's different." I waited. Let the space stay empty. Let the words land where they may. "We had to start over," he added, as if it clarified anything. I nodded once. Life does that. He studied me. then brows drawing together like he couldn't quite reconcile the woman in front of him with the sister he remembered if he'd ever truly known her. "You're not mad?" he asked. "After everything, I tilted my head." The wind caught the edge of my scarf and played with it like a child. "No," I said, "I'm not mad." He almost smiled as if he thought that meant we were okay. "But I'm not forgetting either," I added. There it was, the flicker of confusion followed by the familiar rise of defense. "Still holding a grudge, huh?" he said, laughing, like it was all a misunderstanding, a joke we might one day laugh about. "No," I answered, softer now. "I'm just holding my ground." Tyler shifted. For once, he had nothing ready. No spin, no retort. "Well," he mumbled, "if Mom knew I saw you, she'd probably want me to say hi." "Then you've said it," I replied gently. He looked away. His reflection in the shop window seemed blurrier than I remembered. "Smaller. Okay then," he said. "Take care. You too," I replied. And I walked away. I didn't glance back. That evening, I lit the candles around my dining table, the ones Clara said made everything taste fancier. The apartment smelled like citrus and thyme. The windows were open just enough to let the spring air in, along with the sounds of the city settling into another night. Clara arrived first, carrying a lemon cake that leaned slightly to one side. I told her it was charming. She told me to cut it straight. Then came Alex and Priya from the agency, still debating whether oat milk ruined coffee. Evan from the community center brought a homemade casserole that threatened to spill in the oven. Nobody came empty-handed or empty-hearted. We poured wine into mismatched glasses, passed dishes hand to hand, laughed about burnt crusts and crooked candles. No one kept score. No one asked about the past. No one expected me to be anything other than who I was, exactly where I was. At one point, Clara raised her glass. "To chosen family," she said. "May we always choose well." We all lifted our glasses. To chosen family. The warmth spread in places money could never reach. Later, after the last dish had been washed, and Clara had kissed my cheek goodnight, I sat in the quiet, a different kind of silence than before. This one didn't ache. It held me. I glanced at the framed email still on the bookshelf, the one I once thought was an end. Now it looked more like a doorway. Next to it, I had tucked Grandma's old cookbook. Inside, pinned under her handwritten pie recipe, was the note she left me years ago. "You'll build what no one sees today, but one day they'll see, and now I finally did." They had erased me from their family frame, so I built one they couldn't crop. I wasn't written out. I rewrote myself. They took me out of their frame, but it was never my job to fit where I wasn't welcome. In the silence that followed, I built something softer, steadier, and mine. Sometimes letting go isn't about bitterness, it's about self-respect. Family isn't defined by DNA or holiday traditions. It's defined by presence, honesty, and the care we show when no one's watching. If this story touched a part of your own, I invite you to share your reflections below. You never know who might need to hear that healing is possible, and that it's never too late to choose peace.